Hi, welcome to a new episode of Engineering Rebuilt.
Do you think you know a lot about construction?
Maybe we can provide a fresh perspective.
This is a podcast where we rebuild preconceptions of engineering,
Reclaim the narrative,
and share the voices of women from across the construction industry. Why not join us?
Let's get started.
So hello and welcome to our latest episode of the Engineering Rebuilt podcast. Tina and I this week are super excited to be talking to our guest Sophie Morris, who we know quite well. We hosted an event together last week for She Builds Collective, our first in-person networking event, which was fabulous. Are recording a podcast this week because there's loads of things about Sophie that we've not had a chance to talk about yet. I would like everyone listening to also know about. Sophie, would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, Lina. Hi, Tina. Really lovely to see you today. And thanks for having me. My name is Sophie and I'm half English, half French. Genuinely brought up and born and raised in Paris by English parents, so a lovely mix of both. And I came over to London for university, studied civil engineering at UCL, where I met Lina, and stayed in North London pretty much ever since. And after our civil engineering degree, I was very hands-on, went from working in oil and gas on oil rigs to construction sites, and now I work for a construction tech startup, which hopefully can talk a bit more about later on. And on the side, I've recently graduated or finished a 200-hour yoga teacher training course, so I can also teach yoga legally-ish on the side. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, so what I found really exciting about kind of your career background and really inspirational about what you've done through the years that we've been working is your ability to move between different parts of the industry and also different countries. So you started working for an oil and gas company in Norway. What was that like for somebody who knows nothing about oil and gas? What does that mean to be on a graduate scheme doing oil and gas?
So the actual full story is that I was supposed to work in Argentina. That's when I accepted the job. So I love to move around, and I've always loved the idea of being able to travel through work, and I like the idea of being an expat, like living where you travel. I always feel that, I always had this thing when I go traveling, surely this place doesn't exist when I finish my holiday. I don't know if anyone's had this feeling before. And basically, these career fairs we had at university, I knew I wanted to do construction management. I really enjoyed being on site the summer beforehand. And then with this love of traveling, someone came up to one of the firms, said, do you want to go travel the world, work really hard and, do something different? And I was like, yeah, sure, sign me up to the interview. And they warned me that it was going to be awful and far away and a lot of traveling, like being really far away. And basically you get more money the harder and the further away you go. My first offer was to go to Chad, which I just can't handle the heat. So I said no. And then the next thing was Argentina, which I was like, yeah, love it. Love a Malbec. So, and and in the end, I did my training, 3 months of training in Abu Dhabi. So they train you for 3 months before you do anything. There's exams. They teach you everything about oil and gas. So you basically, there was a mix there of chemical, electrical, civil engineering, chemical engineers, and actually renownedly the civil engineers failed the course. So apparently they were surprised that I made it. And you can get fired if you don't pass that 3 months. Like, they don't send, you really need to be prepared, and it's an intensive training. So you get paid to train for 3 months, which kind of was like, why not do it? Because I'm going to learn a whole new other skill set. I did it. And then I was supposed to actually go to Azerbaijan. They changed it from Argentina to Azerbaijan. And then my visa got blocked. They didn't want me there. And then in the end, I went to what they call the Michelin star of oil rigs, which is Norway, which is renownedly the oil rigs are really nice, but you get a lot less money because it's nice. And then the cost of living is much more expensive. So basically it's like, but yeah, and that's what happened. And it was amazing to realize that you could learn anything and still do it. And I then didn't particularly enjoy the day-to-day of the role, but I do not regret what I learned. And I can always say that I commuted to work in a helicopter, which, is scary and exciting at the same time. And I really don't regret it, but it was on an oil rig that the guys I was working with, because it was mainly guys, I'm not going to lie, other than the canteen lady, they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to build bridges. And they were like, well, what are you doing here? And they, they helped me decide, they were like, we're stuck now. We've done this and this is our career and our rotation. And they get, a few weeks on, a few weeks off. And they're like, you've got your whole career ahead of you, go and do what you want to do. And so, yeah, don't regret it. But that was my stint, 9 months in total in oil and gas. And don't ever give me a room with a sea view. I don't need that. I've done the room with the sea view.
I'm very jealous that you get to commute in a helicopter. I mean, that's next level. But what's it like an average day?
So an oil rig works 24/7, so it never stops. It costs something around $1 million to run an oil rig a day, something like that. So every hour of the drill rig is costs money. And what I did was services to go and check the rig is in good state. So the cement, the structure of it, and mainly I was doing logging tools that you put in the well to go and check how things are doing. And usually we get to come in when there's a problem, which means that they have to stop their operations. And every minute of our work is time that they're not making money. That's as simple as that. And mine was mainly producing oil rig, not exploratory ones. And you work by shifts, 12-hour shifts, night shifts or day shift, minimum 12 hours, maximum 16 hours. And usually when you start, you go on the night shift because it's kind of less likely that something bad will happen at night, but you never know. And you share a cabin with someone, but you never see them because they're on the other shift. So you never meet them, but you share you see their product in the showers. Sometimes it's a guy, but you're not allowed to go into the room while they're sleeping. That's their time. So if you happen to finish your shift earlier, you can't go because if you've worked at night, in the day, you need to let them rest. So yeah, really regimented in Norway anyway. It was 12-hour, maximum 16 hours if you're running an operation, but then they kick you back, you need to leave. And you get a third of your time off when you get back on shore. So if you take a week I think if you take 3 weeks on the rig, you get a week off. You're not supposed to go to work. You're supposed to get that time off because you've been 24 hours over there.
What does your time off look like when you're on the rig? So that's social time or the time that's yours when you're not working or sleeping?
It's like a cruise. There's a cinema room, there's a gym, there's the canteen, There's, every phone on the rig, you can call any number in the world for free. So, because you're not allowed your phones. Yeah, you have to lock your phone up before you go onto the rig at the helipad. You're not allowed to bring your phone, but you're allowed to bring your computer, so you can Facebook message, you can Skype, those sort of things. But you're not allowed to take pictures or call anyone because of the it's like a plane, it can mess with the signals and everything. So when you come back from offshore, you take your phone out and it's like ding 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 ding, like all your phone and your things. But yeah, it's mainly like you just go to sleep, have your food, and 12 hours. So you work 12 hours, but your break is 12 hours. So by the time you've mentally switched off, like you need to get back up again. Your shift starts at 6 a.m. So, you need to be pretty strict with yourself.
So after you worked on oil rigs in Norway, you came back to the UK and you worked in building construction in the UK. And I know you've done some other quite a wide range of different projects over the course of your career. What has been your favourite project to work on?
Yeah. So funnily enough, when I decided to quit oil and gas, I'd actually already decided months before. I think that kept me going. I joined a graduate program and it only started back in September. So I knew I had time. So I'd made that decision. I knew that by the next September, I actually called back a graduate program I'd said no to and kind of groveled. And they were like, well, we still want you, but this time you have to come in September. And I was like, I will, don't worry. And actually, weird circle of life, there was a project at UCL to build a university building. And I'd studied at UCL, so they were like, amazing, why don't we have, someone who learned how to build at UCL, build something at UCL. And so I was the face of the project, and it was actually really, really lovely to go back to build where I'd learned how to build and be part of that legacy. It's a beautiful campus, and 2.5 years I was there from the start to finish. Even helped, when we were doing logistical plans. I knew, between holidays where people would walk, like from my team. It was amazing that I knew all the insights about the holidays, who would be around, for noise and disturbance. And then obviously the university loved it, using me for career fairs, and I managed to bring loads of students to site and connect back with my department. So yeah, I think it was really special, though everyone was like, are you ever going to leave this place? Like, you left, went to oil rigs, and you came back to UCL. So it was quite nice. The student coffee was still cheap. The student bars, we were allowed, because we were contractors, we were able to go to have pints at the unions. Yeah. So those cheap pints were pretty nice. But it felt really special, and I always wanted to build a bridge with the idea of, I'm going to drive over a bridge and say I was part of this. Probably won't ever be part of a bridge. I will always admire them. But I cycle past that building still now, and I walk into it and I see people using it, students using it. And I don't know, it's such a great feeling. And I have people who send me pictures. Oh, look, this is what you worked on. That's an amazing feeling. Although you always look at the problems, you're like, oh, that leak, that chip on the floor, or this, you remember, and every time we go, people are like, oh, I'm done hearing about all of this. But it's very, very special. And hopefully it's going to be there for a while. And yeah, really proud of that, but definitely a highlight of my career for sure.
And then you made a leap into startup construction tech. So how did you decide to go from, because they are very different, right? How did you decide to switch over from one to the other? So
I think, like any professional, at some point you start thinking about your career and what you want. And I'd become quite comfortable where I was. Obviously, I knew a lot of people, and there was a certain career path for me. And I think I wanted to make an informed decision this time, not quitting oil and gas like I did. I knew construction was the industry I wanted to be in. I started to think about what I wanted for 5-10 years ahead. And so I started just on LinkedIn. I put like open to opportunities, so not looking but open to hear about opportunities. And obviously recruiters start messaging you, and then you start realizing that you say yes and then most of them don't respond, and then there's a few you start having your own kind of, you set aside having a CV and something ready just to do the ping pong and just to see until someone was actually serious about a few opportunities. And I met a few general contractors, some subcontractors. I just considered going to work directly for a subcontractor because I'd worked for a main contractor. So I wanted to maybe go, full, experience that. And then basically I realized that if I was going to move, it wasn't to go and do the same thing elsewhere. I decided that if I was going to move, it was going to be for something different, something, I was enjoying most of the day to day. I just wanted more for myself, just opportunities that I didn't feel were coming my way or not quickly enough, maybe rather not very patient. If I know, if I want something. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. But this place, this workplace, I'd built that patience and I'd learned, and I had really enjoyed the years I'd been there. And when I looked for the opportunities, I realized I wouldn't be happy doing the same thing somewhere else. So if I was going to do the same thing, I'd stay where I was. And that's how my open to opportunity really was open to different opportunities. And a few things started coming up, and one day, I had this opportunity for construction tech. And this recruiter, the vibe was good, and so I responded, and I was like, send me more, sent me the brochure, and the ping pong was there. I was like, oh, professional. We jumped on a call, and then she was like, construction. I was like, yeah. She's like, do you know tech? And I was like, nope. She's like, do you think you could get your head around it? And maybe it's that, having done oil and gas, maybe, that confidence that you can learn. And, I think learning as an adult is an amazing thing to do. I was like, well, what's the worst that can happen? And when she told me what these guys did, I was like, because again, there's 3 founders, and I tend to say guys for people, but no, it was 3, it was the guys at the time. They had this idea, and I was like, I actually thought I'd speak to them as a laugh. I was like, no way you can get this done. And then I spoke to one of the founders, and we just really hit it off on the phone. It was just like bam, bam, bam. And then he was like, wait, you work on site? Like, you actually work on site? And I was like, yeah, why? What's the big deal? And they've been trying to meet people who work on site. It's really hard. Like, your hours, you're not really on LinkedIn when you're a site manager, really. Your phone number, you have professional phone numbers that you turn off when, you can go through the switchboard, and sometimes people chance it. They're like, go to the switchboard and try and get through to you. And people get reached out a lot. And so imagine the idea of a construction tech. Anyway, so they were like, oh my God, you actually work on site? And I was like, yeah. And then I was working in Paris at the time, and they were like, and I was going back to London a lot. And so, yeah, we met up, and yeah, the rest is history. Looking back, I'm like, it was pre-COVID, and I was very confident that, it helped me leave because it was different. And the company I was working for, they actually thought I was mad. They said, you're ruining your career. And I said, well, worst case, if it goes tits up, can I come back? And they were like, of course, doors always open. I was like, well, there you go. And then they told me to not come and sell them the software, and now we're working with them in some projects. So, you never know. So yeah, I was definitely open to something different, and I knew I wanted it to be in construction, and now it's opened my eyes even more to so many different things you can do in construction. And what I look after is mainly, it's very much still connected to the site teams. Me and my team make sure that the site teams get the most out of using the software. So I feel really happy to keep that hands-on connection, even though I've made a decision to leave that site life on a day-to-day basis.
That's some incredible advice, I think, for like our listeners on how to how like you're not set in stone, and how you don't have to decide your career when you're a graduate, how it is possible to make moves across countries, across sectors. But the one story I want you to tell is how you were a Sophie team of one and where you're up to now.
Right. Yeah. Roughly, I think I joined the company at like number 15. So I was number 15 in the company. I think we're approximately somewhere in the 200 to 250 people now. And I have basically roughly a team of 15 now. So it's insane. And that's happened in 2.5 years. So that is the life of a startup, hyper growth. And we might make it, we might not. I don't know if you guys know the term of a unicorn. If a startup succeeds, those billion valuations, the IPO that go public, all that, they're called unicorns because it's so rare. I think 95% of startups tank. And we're startup because we rely on the money of our investors to pay the bills and keep going at the minute. We're not profitable. That is, and they're giving us money in the hope that we will be profitable and they will make, 4 or 5 times their investment if it pays off. So yeah, it's a complete different mindset to construction and the margins. It's just really, really interesting for me. And I managed people on site, I made sure people went home safely and moved in the direction they were supposed to. And I didn't have that much involvement in recruitment. I line managed people, but they came to me, whereas now I really get to see the recruitment, the training, looking ahead, your resources. And I want to apologize for some of the tantrums I gave my bosses in the past, because it's really hard to keep everyone happy and moving the right direction. And yeah, I think you live and learn. You just live and learn a bit quicker. And the highs are highs in a startup and the lows are very low. When it doesn't work out with a client, you really, we do take it a bit personally, even though we shouldn't. But at the end of the day, the people I work with, I don't think that's what brought me to this job. The people from the start, the founders, speaking to them, there was a vibe, a really great vibe, and let's give it a go. Do you want to be part of the journey? And right now we're starting to get a bit, investors want their returns and want to see things in the right direction. And we're trying to keep why did we start this in the first place? And it's the people, it's the industry, and, sometimes taking a step back, remembering that we're not surgeons, that we're, no one's dying, and that we're contributing to that the use of the software will hopefully avoid unnecessary trips on site and make sure that, it's less people reaching out, less, potentially going to dangerous zones with a robot and a software. I know in oil and gas, we're exposed to radiation. There's lots of things that, if we can avoid a human getting hurt, that's great. So a lot of people say, oh, you work for a startup, do you save lives? I was like, well, maybe not directly, but yeah, I think that we are contributing to creating a better work-life balance and, relying less on humans going out on site. So yeah, that's the big drive for me, and that's what keeps me going, even though it's not easy every day, for sure.
So we have one question that we always ask, and that is, what would you like to see different in the construction industry in 5 years' time?
So I think it's already started. I think I've seen it, but I think I'd want it to increase more. And I think I've experienced it, is the flexibility, the more flexible work, and especially returning to work in a really ideal, whether people want kids or not. I think a shared maternity and paternity leave is something that, from the Scandinavian countries, and I want people, if we could live in a world where, people take the same time off, whether, a baby's made by 2 people. And I think men still feel like, oh, is it going to look bad or weak if I don't take the time off? And I think whether you want kids or not, knowing that that's how things happen, that, I think that's something, a goal that I would love to, and I know I'm advocating for that in my company now, when, there are people who've been in positions that have had babies, no one's even noticed. And, it's a shame, because it's a big deal and it's important people are there for that. But yeah, all the move to technology, flexible working on site, I've seen it with some of my clients. They started really putting in rotas, late finishes and early finishes, and some of the team, finish earlier on a Friday, and it's amazing to see that happen, because I don't think you can effectively be paying attention or acting safely or really efficient for 12 hours and being there on site. And I think sharing that responsibility is something that, I think will help people come back to work and share that responsibility. If people get used to tonight it's a late shift, that guy's gone home, and no, he's on the early fish on a Friday. We do it with trades, they show up on a Monday and they leave early on a Friday to head back to wherever they're going. That's what I experienced on site. I don't see why it should be on the GC to be there until the last lift on the crane or the last pour of the concrete, just in case something happens. It's, we can be smarter and make sure people get the rest they need to be more alert and have the flexibility to have a personal life and to do things that they want to do, which I was able with this crazy job. I work less hours but more intensely now. But the difference is that I get to, for example, I did a 6 months training course to become a yoga teacher in the evenings and at weekends, and I had to carve out times. I had to miss some early morning meetings because I was doing yoga, and it hasn't impacted my career and probably helped me create better boundaries with work, and people respect that. So I think it's giving that flexibility. I often hear people say, oh, I wish I had some kids so I can get out of this meeting. And it's like, that's not it doesn't need to be a kid. It's like, we all deserve to have our focus time, our breathing time, our lunch breaks, our coffee. And I'm trying to, I've started joining meetings on my phone because I get Zoom fatigue. I prefer walking around. I miss just phone calls on site. It was very phone call, now I say to people, just drop me a text, give me a call. I love, even with my friends now, so I just call them rather than can we book in when are you free? So, that's the change I'd like to see is, I'm not sure if everyone were to go 4 days, that'd be amazing, but I think we're still quite far away from that. I actually think that having 5 days, but with that breathing space, we can't be on it back to back for 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's just not possible. And it's about those mornings, those lunches, those evenings as well. Just making sure that it works for different people, and not everyone is a morning person and an evening person, and it's good to have a bit of everything. Measure the results, not the hours. Make the hours count, not count the hours is definitely where I'd like to go.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think Tina does as well. One thing I think about, I know that we have a massive resource issue in the construction industry at the moment, where we have a massive pipeline of work and across all companies, it's a real struggle to find people to fill those spaces. But at the same time, I feel like where previously we've recruited a lot of our people from a small group of traditionally white men, if we're now putting so much effort into widening that recruitment into the entirety of the population, it should give us access to enough people that if we now have enough people, we could start to be smarter about our flexible working. So maybe we recruit a couple extra people, but they're working less hours, and net the project is getting the same resource, but people have that space for their lives on top of their work, and we're able to make adjustments that suit people on an individual basis so they can get the work-life balance that they want for their life. And it's not so ingrained that it has to be one specific way. That would be really exciting. And also better shared parental leave. Not just for directly after you have a child, but there's so many statistics around what the long-term impacts are of one parent taking a significant amount of the parental leave compared to the other parent, and what that does for your career opportunities, your pay over time. So the biggest impact on gender pay differences is after you have children. That's when the gap really starts to grow between men and women. So I think understanding that and having better shared parental leave policies so that there's equal opportunities at that stage is really important. What do you think, Tina?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, both of you. And we've had some really interesting conversations in the past where it's become like where parents are actually losing money by the woman returning to work because of the cost of childcare, which in my mind is just absolute madness. So there's definitely a little bit of work, or a lot of work needed to, I guess, make parental leave more equal. And the other thing that I'm very passionate about, Sophie, is like you talked about flexible working, this mention of job share, part-time working, and that idea, I guess, around fitting your yoga schedule in, because a lot of people talk about family, but not a lot of people talk about having fun outside of work.
I mean, I'm not sure it was fun. I don't think they tell you before you sign up, but it was like, I'm not going to lie, I treated it like pick up from school. Like, I respect when people put out of office, picking up school, and I had to create that boundary. I had to leave. And sometimes I had people walking with me to the lifts and the lift door was closing. I was like, bye. I know I need to be on a yoga mat in an hour, and I need to change, and I need to calm down, and I need to give this, it's a personal financial investment. It's an investment in myself, and the people of the course, the teachers, and God knows it really took me, and I'm really glad it happened. It started in September, finished in March, and I had Christmas as that break to really take it all in, take that time off work to really, I came back from Christmas and was like, you're at risk of messing this up and trying to fit it all in. And I actually said no to a few work trips, said no to a few things. I was like, these will still be available in 6 months, in a year, but this time I'm giving myself, and it's taught me off the mat to show up on time. I don't know if anyone's ever thought about when you cancel a last minute yoga class, that teacher's been planning a class, with, that teacher is self-employed and looking at the people coming, and, I've just had a much bigger appreciation for showing up, and for, even if you're not in the mood, don't worry. And actually, you're probably not alone. There were other people who had kids, other situations. Some people, at the start of the course were way more into it than others, and then dropped off, and it's towards the end. Everyone has their own journey with learning. Some people take loads of notes, some people don't. But you have to really, what I learned was the importance of showing up for yourself mainly, and choosing your battles. And a few things dropped, a few people were a bit upset and even on your personal life, I couldn't travel to things. Sometimes I couldn't show up to certain things. But in the long run, the people who care for you and respect you will always appreciate you choosing yourself, even if sometimes, it's fighting that instant gratification of pleasing everyone. And, I did this course for myself, and I'm so glad I did. And it was not easy every day. And it showed me, even around me, who was really supportive and who wasn't as supportive. Someone at work told me, they got nervous. They're like, but you wouldn't quit. You'd be bored to be a yoga teacher full time. I was like, like, why are you even thinking about that? Like me, people obviously got scared, like, ooh, life outside of work. Are they going to go and do that full time? Like, I don't know, maybe. And now I know that if I wanted to, that's something I could do. But no, that's not the plan at the minute. It's definitely something I like doing as a hobby.
Saying yes to opportunities, though, isn't it? I think that's
but
just
learning to say no as well.
Yes, that's right. Learning to say yes and no to the right opportunities and showing up for yourself. I absolutely love that, and it's really, really wholesome. And I think that's something that isn't considered a lot anymore. I'm aware of time. I think that's actually just a really nice way to finish off the podcast on a yoga, on a self-care note. But do you have any final bits of advice or anything you'd like our listeners to know about?
I just really glad that you guys have started and that you're giving people an opportunity to talk about their journeys. I think it's so easy because there's so few of us. In my own experience, so few other women I've met in my career, or I have seen many more in the last 10 years, I have to say, which is really lovely. But I only know my view of it and my own experience, and you guys giving me the opportunity to hear about other people. And I've had so much great feedback from me opening up as well. And I had a bit of a blockage before She Builds recently. I'd kind of had a Google never forget moment after doing a lot of stuff as a young graduate, thinking this is going to help, and then looking back thinking I was not helping myself. I was helping someone else's agenda. So yeah, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with this, and you guys really helped me get back to that engagement and realizing that talking about it is the most important thing. And that's all we can do. That's the change I can do in my sphere, is talk about it, even if sometimes it's a bit excruciating to blow your own trumpet. But I never was given any barriers. My dad, my family just always like, follow what you want to do. And for some reason, for me, that was construction. I see cranes, I see concrete, I enjoy the vibe. There's just something about it, and no one's ever said no. And I'm keep going until someone tells me to not do it. And I've had a few roadblocks or little things along the way, and sometimes some people chose to not work. There's always going to be something stopping you, but it's not just your career. And if I could take that advice outside of your career, is it feels right for you and you fancy it, then I just say go for it. And then I don't know, it's your life. And I think someone said, it's not you only live once, you live a lot of times, but you only die once. So it's like, shifting it into mess up a few times, just go try it. And like kids, when they fall down, you have to let them fall down the stairs a few times just so they understand, you've seen babies just like knock, and they on the ice, if you put them on skates and they fall, and then they're not, they're like, and then they get back up until, okay, I've got my balance. And yeah, I think it's great to learn new things as an adult and just say yes. Don't go full yes man, maybe, but every now and again, especially now that we can see people in person, we can do more stuff. It's so nice to be able to reconnect with people.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And I think that's a good way to end as well, because it may not look like it for you who's inside the bubble of your own life, I guess, but from the outside, I think one of your real strengths and what people will look to you for is like that strength to move around, which might seem really easy, but to try oil and gas and think, oh no, this isn't right, and then move and try something else and think, oh, I like construction, but let's try some different part of it because it might be better for me, and just to keep moving, and then to go out there and do the yoga piece as well.
The key is not burning your bridges. Definitely. As long as you don't burn your bridges, definitely build them. But change is all good as long as you manage it properly. And that's something I'm very proud of, that I've never closed the door to any of the people I've worked with, and never left in a, even when it's been difficult. It's having that, you're your own brand, right? So 100%, definitely. Sometimes moving around is a red flag, right? But I'd like to think that I have a reason for all of my moves, and just make sure that it fits into your life plan. I would, don't go chasing the quick move and the quick, just really think about how it fits in and stay true to your values, for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming on our podcast. It's been so good to have you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Engineering Rebuilt. We hope you enjoyed being part of the conversation. Please join us next time to hear more diverse stories from people who are reclaiming their narrative to rebuild engineering.